This is a ticket to the party.
Evening, boys. First service. You gotta love Mohammed.
Oh! That is a moment of absolute magic from Federer.
It's Murray magic, though.
Djokovic, what are you doing? It's phenomenal.
He's got quite a large gluteus maximus.
I've never seen anything like it.
Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Loosely Strung Tennis Podcast. But today, as we've mentioned before, today's a little bit different, boys, isn't it?
It's very different.
You
could say you're changing up a bit this week.
We are mega changing it up
Yeah,
this week. We have a very special guest. We have Ben Rothenberg, world-renowned Ben Rothenberg with us. Ben, how are you? And it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. Happy to be reconnecting with some Scottish roots through this medium. It's very exciting for me to get the chance to do this.
Superb. Right, well, I always start the podcast off with a more personal question because, I mean, tennis for me is secondary. I like to know what's going on in people's lives. So I usually jump round the boys and say, give me the highlight of the week. So we'll do it normally. We'll start with Ross B. Ross, give me a highlight of the week.
Ooh, highlight of the week. See, I can't talk about any wings related highlights of the week usually, Ben, when we start this podcast, about 5 minutes in, it takes me about 5 minutes to start talking about chicken wings and my food from the week that I've eaten, and then it gets a bit crazy. So I'm just going to say my highlight of the week because it's been with you guys and this pod with Ben. So I'm going to say that.
Lovely. Skinny, give me your highlight of the week.
My highlight of the week's not happened yet. I have done a full dry January. So I'm having my first beer in over 30 days tonight. So
Tonight after the podcast, come on.
So I earned it.
Gary boy, highlight of the week. What?
No,
Not work.
Just a drive to work.
No, me and Skinny and Ross P and Callum had a good night in here last night prepping up our new setup.
Yeah.
Superb. Gracie, you always got the greatest highlight of the week.
As always, as you thought it couldn't get any better for the always humble Callum Price. He just received another promotion within 8 months.
What a
We'll
guy.
take it.
Ben, give me your highlight of the week for yourself.
Oh gosh, yeah. Highlight of the week for myself is probably just trying desperately to get back on Australian time. I didn't travel this year, but still was staying up late. So getting to wake up at 2 p.m. repeatedly this week was nice. Just feeling like completely not a member of society on any functional level. It's always good when tennis does that to you.
That sounds like that's a normal Ross P week.
Yeah,
Like, that's how
that's
he
sound
lives.
to me.
That's how he lives.
Yeah, that is for.
I support it. I support that.
We'll move right on to your book, Ben. If you want to give the listeners a wee update about your book and what's going on with it just now.
Yeah, so I've been working on this book for a little over a year now on Naomi Osaka, and so it's going to get I think publication date may change because she's out for the whole 2023 season. She's pregnant, so she said that she's coming back sort of targeted for Australia next year, probably at the earliest, and we'll see how that actually shakes out when she has the kid. I mean, it's tough to know when you're having a kid, especially for the first time in the middle of the career and everything she has going on in her life, how exactly she'll reset and what her priorities will be at that point. Yeah, so we're working on a date for that, trying to hopefully finding some UK publisher for it soon. It's been a lot of fun to do to sort of dive deep into this project rather than most of what I've done in my career has sort of been the more daily newspaper stuff, just sort of relatively quicker stuff. So having a lot of time to think about one project has been both great and also sort of overwhelming at the same time. Try to get all this totally different scale of stuff, where usually what I write is like about 1,000 words and this is over 100,000. So it's a big sort of exponential leap there, but it's been fun. Hopefully people will enjoy it. It's something I wanted to do for a while in terms of writing a book about tennis or about things I've covered on tour. So I'm glad this one is finally taking shape.
Sounds superb. But I would say myself, I'm a pretty big Osaka fan, so I know I'm a pretty big book fan as well. So I'll be getting I do like a book.
I didn't know that.
Audio books because I can't read.
Yeah, an audio book I can't read. So it sounds superb, and obviously from all of us, we wish you the best with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Right, let's get started with some tennis just now. We spoke last week about the Australian Open, but we're going to go into a little bit more depth with it today. We saw all the stats come out that the men's Australian Open was the lowest for ratings in the last 10 or so years. We spoke last week, didn't we, boys, about it, for us, it just didn't live up to expectations.
Nah, first week was good, but Murray carried it, and then it kind of fizzled out a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, we thought the women's side of the draw was absolutely fantastic. We were engrossed in it. We thought this is prime tennis. But it did give us a big worry about the men's. Ben, I don't know if you had an opinion on if the men's side of the draw lived up to expectations, or if you think there was a reason it dipped.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it dipped. I don't think it was an especially strong tournament, certainly not by Grand Slam standards. I agree with you. I think Murray was the heartbeat of the tournament while he was in it, and he only lasted 3 rounds. So those are 3 very compelling matches he played. And with the way the draw was opening up, it almost seemed like people were daring to dream that he could make a run deeper into the second week than he has in a while. But obviously just the amount of matches he had played caught up to him finally. So yeah, Murray was the sort of heart and soul of it and put on the show. I thought the women's side, I think the women's final was really great. That was a really, really good final. I don't think it was the most highly anticipated final. I don't think people had necessarily the highest hopes for Bakina and Sabalenka. I don't think there's not the most well-known names even within tennis fan circles. So I think expectations were pretty low, and I think they really soared past them and delivered one of the better finals we've had just in terms of level in a long time. So that was a really good note for the women to end on. And then for the men, Djokovic was the favorite, and he was never really tested the whole way, which is kind of the story in Australia a lot. And then I think, there is, in terms of the viewership being so down, and especially in the US, I think it's a number of years that we saw this lowest in 10 years for the final for Australia. And in Australia, domestically, I know it was down as well for most metrics. And I think other places as well, I would imagine, are the same. I do think there are people who, after everything that's happened last year, probably especially, just enjoy watching Djokovic less. I do think people are less motivated. If they think he's going to win and they don't want to watch him win, they might not tune in for that. I don't think his presence there, and he's a polarizing guy, I think everyone can agree on that, whether you like him or not, whatever side of pro or anti-Djokovic, he's a very polarizing guy. And so I think that is meaningful probably in the erosion of some of these numbers, just that if you don't like him and you're pretty confident he's going to win, like, why would you watch on some level? And I do think that he's inspired strong feelings. Whereas at the same time, obviously, you see the fervor and the excitement for him among his supporters is as diehard as ever, if not more. So yeah, I think it's just sort of, it's more polarized that way. And the final it was a straight set final. It wasn't great. And, so yeah, I think there's a few different factors. But yeah, men's tennis is in a transition period. It's really kind of feels like it's almost maybe premature to say it's down to a big one, but Nadal's had a very bad, last 8 months or so since the French Open, really, since he pulled out of Wimbledon in the semifinals. He really has not been anything like a top 5 player that we're used to in terms of his results. So the competition isn't really there right now on the men's side, and that's going to hurt. And if there's no one else to challenge Djokovic, except for, I guess, various immigration authorities who still can't get into the U.S. for Indian Wells or Miami in the short run, it seems like. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a reset time, and so seeing if anyone steps up.
Yeah, we spoke last week about how big a miss Alcaraz was.
Yes,
like, I think the tournament completely changes, as well as having Kyrgios in as well for viewership. But Alcaraz is a massive miss for me. Him or Holger Rune are maybe the only two that could challenge Djokovic, not even level wise, but mentally. I think the rest of the draw look and go, well, I can't beat him mentally or physically, so like I've already lost before I've walked on. And that's what we were saying. Like, if Alcaraz was in Australia, I think the tournament's completely different, and you might be sitting here saying that was an incredible tournament because Alcaraz plays Djokovic in the final, and no matter what, it's probably going to be a blockbuster. But with him not being in it and the look of the last 16, yeah. I think we sat here on the Monday before it and went, this is a pretty easy one to predict.
Yeah, the mental part is absolutely huge for Djokovic. And then, honestly, he delivers the goods, too. It's not all just bluster. I mean, like, especially what he does in these tie breaks that he's been in some of these big matches in recent years of his career. He goes to complete lockdown and doesn't miss. And it makes these matches that even if they look a little bit close on the scoreboard, sometimes they're really not that close when you watch them because he runs away the tie breaks so quickly. and just, is so best when he needs it most. And it seems so in control of the match and how much, rope he has to work with at any given point. Uses every inch of it sometimes. Even, within a straight set win, he can really manage his energy really well. So I think he's just kind of leagues ahead of everybody right now. Tsitsipas, did have some success early in his career against him, but wasn't really ready for it. And yeah, you're right. I think that Rune, who beat him in the Paris-Bercy final, was maybe someone who could do something. And also Alcaraz, yeah, but having neither of them get to play him, yeah, it just seems like it's a really thin kind of pack right now. There's a few guys who are trending down. Medvedev, who was number one this time last year, or getting to number one this time last year, he is out of the top 10 now. Zverev obviously had his injury and it's looked really bad in Australia. So I don't know how long he's going to take to get back in the mix. Yeah, it's just sort of a transition time. Berrettini, I feel like he had a tough draw with Murray first round, but he's not quite been in the mix like he could be. So yeah, I think Djokovic has a clear runway, and then you'd kind of expect him to at this stage.
Do you think, Ben, that any of the American players apart from Fritz can step up and start to challenge near the top of the rankings?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it depends on how long, how patient you are for that assessment. Like, I think that the numbers are certainly there. I think after the Australian Open, there's 10 Americans in the top 50 of the rankings, which is pretty incredible representation to have 20% of the top 50 be Americans. How many of them have the upside to win in Grand Slam? I mean, Francis Tiafoe, came within one set of making the US Open final last year. He lost to Alcaraz in 5 in that semifinal. And so, yeah, he's someone who at his best, I think, has this sort of game to hang with anybody and to rise to the occasion. It'd be interesting to see someone like him play someone like Djokovic in the US Open, let's say this year, where the crowd could be behind him. That could be a pretty special match if that could happen. And then, yeah, some of the other guys, I think the one with the most sort of talent right away, this most complete game is Sebastian Korda, who has been right there with these big guys in some big matches and just hasn't been able to close it out. He had match points against Djokovic in Adelaide in January. And then also he was leading a big lead against Rafa at Indian Wells last year and just couldn't close that out either. I think it was at 5-1 or 5-2 in the third of that match. So, yeah, so he's there in terms of games, just a mental thing for him. And then just also staying healthy. He's had some health issues, and he had a wrist injury that forced him out of the Australian Open that hopefully isn't too serious. And then there's Ben Shelton, who's very raw still, but his game is pretty incredible, the parts he does have. And he's into the top 50 already after making the quarterfinals in Australia. So he probably has a little bit longer to sort of develop and marinate before he's ready to beat a Djokovic at peak Djokovic. But long term, he's got a huge upside. People are pretty excited about him.
Yeah, you'll probably find out pretty soon, but I've predicted an American winner for a Grand Slam this year.
Okay.
So I'm backing the Americans. I think tennis needs, especially for coverage and stuff, I think tennis needs a top American player.
Yeah.
We kind of spoke about it already a little bit, but last week in the pod, I said I've got a worry for tennis over the next few years. I think it's lacking a few characters. I think it needs some. We've had a running joke that we see like Holger Rune and Tsitsipas as like perfect Bond villains.
Yeah.
So I think tennis needs like characters and jokers and like people are like, wow, we need to watch this guy. He's brilliant.
Bad guy.
Yeah, every sport needs a bad guy. Like a bad guy, just everyone needs an antagonist.
This podcast gets one, it's Callum.
Yeah, I'm the bad guy.
Thanks, Callum.
So, do you not feel like tennis that there is a real lack of massive characters, like, except from Djokovic, there's not really bad guys. I feel like maybe Kyrgios at times, but I still feel like he gets incredible amounts of support. I feel like there is that like space is vacant for someone on the tour to grab, and I'd love it to be Holger Rune. I'd be right behind him for it all the way.
Yeah, I think Holger absolutely has that potential. I mean, I know they're filming him for the Netflix season 2, which hasn't been officially greenlit, I believe, but I know there were some cameras around him in Australia. And to me, he's that perfect kind of like reality show villain. If they're he'll use the word documentary for the Netflix show to make it sound like fancy, but it's a reality show on some level. And Holger Rune is a great reality show villain but caricature even, because he's such a, so expressive and so confident and, not shy about his emotions and things like that. And so, yeah, he could absolutely be in the mix. And you know, there have been times certainly where there have been maybe too many villains of sort of a low grade on the ATP, where different guys just everyone has some reason to find everyone annoying, and so that's why I think there was a surprising amount of love, let's say, for like a Casper Ruud when he emerged last year. He was seen as being incredibly unproblematic on some level and just sort of a nice, if sort of, you know, potentially bland guy, but that was sort of a nice antidote to.
I think we've said he's a bit too nice.
Yeah, I mean, he very well could be, but he's also just sort of, he's a contrast to some of the other, you know, people who get dismissed as being brattier, to use the tennis word, which is sort of an age-old tennis term. Casper is not that. So yeah, it's a mix, you know, but it'll take, I think really what it takes to develop stories is to have results, you know, like for Naomi Osaka, we mentioned, like the women's tour got helped a lot. She had a result because she beat Serena Williams in the US Open final. And that was the sort of torch passing moment. And that was it happened because of the results. And so that's why it's really tough for the men's game when you have something like Carlos Alcaraz winning the US Open and then missing the year-end championships and the Australian Open with injury. And that's really rough for the tour when they're trying to develop storylines and continuity.
So if you were going to pick that one player in the men's tour to take that baton from Djokovic, who do you think on tour would be the one, or is that player, do you not think on the tour yet? It's going to be 5 years down the line.
5 years maybe a little bit long. I mean, it could be a year or two more for sure. I mean, Djokovic is only going to keep getting older too. That's the thing, and his game is so physical that although he was really efficient in Australia too with managing whatever injury he had there, and he can play a lot less defensively, and it's just a great ball striker and server. I mean, those parts of his game are underrated for how much he can just sort of stand and deliver. I think Alcaraz is in there in the mix for sure. Jannik Sinner, haven't mentioned, but Jannik Sinner was up 2-0 on him in Wimbledon last year. Could have potentially had the game to match him, if not the mentality, maybe. So yeah, there's a few guys who have the potential, but it's very, very hard actually getting it done against the Djokovic. I do think Djokovic will need to come down a bit to earth before he can get past with his current altitude. I don't think it's really matchable.
I don't think he'll ever come down to earth.
Eventually, what goes up must come down.
So we're going to actually have a look at some predictions that we made from the start of the year. We obviously had the Australian Open, which I was the only person that got wrong because I predicted Felix Auger-Aliassime to win it, and he incredibly let me down. The match he lost, I just thought was terrible. It was a bit of a nightmare for me. The rest of the boys predicted Djokovic. I actually just want from you, Ben, what's your predictions for Roland Garros, Wimbledon and the US Open? If you can just give us the winner. I mean, we're going to trust you as a tennis genius to predict that you'll get it right. And then we'll give you some of ours. Some of our shockers, to be honest, especially from Ross P. It's not great, but no, give us your French Open, Wimbledon and US one so we can hold it against you for the next 7 or 8 months.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a lot of it depends honestly on how Alcaraz does physically, because if he's out of the picture, I think it changes the tour pretty meaningfully. But I made predictions preseason. I'll just stick with them. I had Alcaraz winning the French Open. I think he's been good on clay. And, you know, he won Barcelona and won Madrid last year. He's such a physical guy. I think he can match and maybe even beat Djokovic on physicality. I don't know that Rafa's going to be in the mix that much in Paris this year. It's tough to know. I'm not going to bank on that. So I think Alcaraz or Djokovic are my two picks for Paris now. And I would probably, just to be a little interesting, would pick Alcaraz right now. Because I will pick Djokovic for Wimbledon. He's just been so good there, and the conditions, he's made them really his own. So I think he'll win Wimbledon again, probably, to get the sole possession of 23 if he doesn't get it already in Paris. And then US Open, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for Medvedev to come back. I feel like Medvedev is too good to be ranked where he is now. I think we'll maybe do a bit of a bounce back for him. So I'll pick Medvedev for US Open.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it all, Ben, but I don't think we could be writing the greatest of all time, Rafa, off this early. It's but a minor injury. And some could say I'm a fanboy, some would say I'm stupid. I would just say I'm loyal. So I see Rafa at Roland Garros for 15, is it? 14? 15.
It would be 15, yeah.
Well.
No, the only one I've got to throw at you is my good friend Ross P has Andy Murray winning Wimbledon this year.
I think everyone would be very happy with that.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, the dream run for Andy is something everyone wants, and sure, why not? I mean, yeah, why not?
Yeah, jump on the bandwagon. You can see the smile on Ross P's face just now. It's incredible.
I've got faith, man. I've got faith in the man.
So if you're a Murray fan and want him to win Wimbledon, do you want him to skip the clay entirely this year?
Yeah, I don't see how much use that's going to do for him. I mean, maybe a couple of tournaments for his ranking. It depends where his ranking is by the time he gets to the clay season, because he needs to get that up for him to be seeded. I think for Wimbledon to have any shot at it. So it depends where he's sitting with that. I don't see him going into the second week of Roland Garros. I don't know if that's realistic for him. So, and for him, as a player, as a guy, if he's not got a realistic chance to go to the second week of a slam, I don't think he's going to entertain going. I think he just needs to. He's got that in that sort of sense of self that he can't accept these first week's losses of Grand Slams. He needs to be in the second week. He needs to be in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, the final. So at Roland Garros, it was amazing in 2016 when he got to the final. But for him to get anywhere near that right now, I don't think it's realistic.
We picked a few questions each. Not really, well, a little bit tennis related, but we want to have a laugh as well. So,
sounds good.
Question one, I'll lead in with it. You're at a pub quiz. 3 players make up your team on the WTA or ATP tour. 3 players. Let's hear them.
Current players?
They can be from the past as well, but don't go too far back that we can't remember.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pick Andrea Petkovic is the one who comes to mind first. She feels like one of the rare tennis players who reads a lot of books and stuff and has sort of paid attention to pop culture.
Brilliant.
So that's a pretty easy one for me there. I actually pick Iga Swiatek too on modern players. I think she could do well. She seems. And I should pick a man too.
You don't have to.
No, but I should just to balance it out in terms of sort of knowledge areas. It's a good strategy, if anything. Let's see. Just be very tactical about this. All right, let's pick. Who would know things? Medvedev. Medvedev is a good pick. Medvedev is a smart guy.
Yeah, he would
Definitely got some obscure knowledge, Medvedev.
Yeah, he's like a big gamer. He likes sports. He would cover a bunch of good categories.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair.
All right, I'm going to hit you with the next one, and this has to be quick fire, as we said.
Yep.
Rank these guys: Federer, Nadal, Djokovic.
Oh God! All in terms of what? In terms of what? What am I ranking them on?
The way I've always said it is how much it's not just about titles; it's about growing the game, and it's your honest opinion on them. So, what order are you putting them in?
Oh, for growing the game, that's a very different question than greatest. I would pick Federer. I mean, just in terms of popularity, if that's what you're saying for growing the game.
Yeah.
Federer, Nadal, Djokovic in that order. That's pretty clear, I think.
But who's your goat then, playing wise?
I think purely results is Djokovic. I mean, that's
it's a tough one to take.
It's getting less tough. I think
there's
honestly,
so many Federer and Nadal fans here.
I know. I'm not saying it's what you want to hear, but I mean, Djokovic is the guy. He is won as many. He's also won every Masters at least twice, which is incredible. Yeah. No one else has done them even once.
Yeah.
So he's way far ahead in a bunch of important categories.
Yeah. Next one from me, Ben. You're going on a night out. You're taking one tennis player with you. Who is it?
Okay. It all very much depends what kind of night you want. But let's say, I would pick. Let's just go crazy. I'll say Tomic.
That's what Callum said.
That was my answer as well. I said, I don't think you'd remember the night for years, but I'm sure it'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Right, we've got two more questions. Quick fire. We've already spoke about it before. A Bond villain. We speak about it all the time. If you had to pick one Bond villain from either tour, who are you picking?
Ostapenko.
That's right. Yes, amazing.
We think she is world-class entertainment, like box office, and people need to buy into her a little bit more. Right, last question. Go for it, Pricey.
So, Ben, you're stuck on a desert island for an unexplained amount of time. Who is the one player you would want to have with you, and you and that player had to watch one match for the rest of your time on the island, what would the match be and what would the player be?
Oh, watching the same match over and over?
Yeah, just until you get rescued. So you
can
so it
watch-
might be really fast. So you don't want to watch like the Mahoo Isna match in case you get rescued in 2 days. But you got to think about it.
I'll send you one of mine across. They're pretty good if you want to watch one.
Wait, so I get rescued as soon as the match was over? Is what you're saying?
No. You've got years of watching that match.
Oh,
A match
God.
that is just a classic. You could watch it 1,000 times.
I don't think any match would hold up to being watched that many times, honestly. Okay, let's see. Match. I'll go with him again because he doesn't get a lot of love these days. There's a crazy match between Bernard Tomic and Dolgopolov that happened in the 3rd round, I believe, of the Australian Open in 2012.
Wow.
Which is the first year I was there.
Wow.
And if you guys haven't seen this match, this is a deep cut. But if you haven't seen this match, there's good highlights of it on YouTube. It's incredible. It's both of them hitting just like the weirdest shots you've ever seen. Just like slices and drops, and nothing normal ever happens this entire match.
Ben, you've not seen Ross Patrick play tennis?
Well, I like weird tennis. So I would like something. If it was going to be something,
Well, he's a maverick. He's one of a kind.
if I had to watch
I'll
something,
live stream my next match for you. Don't
if
worry.
I was going insane having to watch any match, hundreds of times on this island, I would I'd like it to be something that would match my sort of level of delirium in the end. So I think that would be a good pick. And the player to watch it with, I could pick Medvedev again. He's just he seems like a funny guy. I don't want to put him on this island though. He deserves to be on land. But
Well,
he seems like it'd be a fun guy to watch. A good kind of, what do you call it?
I'm sure he'll be buzzing.
Goggle box kind of guy like you have over there.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Ben, we're gonna let you get away because we know you're an extremely busy man. But from every one of us on the podcast, a massive thank you for coming on. I know we've only been kicking about for 2 or 3 months, but it's we've grown pretty fast, and having someone like you on is absolutely amazing for us and what we're trying to do. So again, thank you so much, and we hope to have you on in the future, maybe get a few chats with you over the next year or so. But yeah, thanks, and if we don't hear from you or we don't see you, great. Really good luck with the book, and hope everything goes well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Thanks very much, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I had fun. Nice to spend some time with you guys here.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, folks.